DeFi Slate team.
It's your boy Andy, and welcome back to the DeFi Slate YouTube channel. Smash the like button on this video, that really helps us out, and sit back and enjoy the content. Thank you very much. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode 52 of the DeFi by Design podcast. Today, we're going to learn a little something about some NFTs. And I know that there's a lot of y'all who have been seeing a lot of these illiquid, rich, wealthy, new upper class JPEG traders flaunting on the timeline. And I'll have you know, we don't put Deeze in that category, but there are definitely quite a few of them out there on Twitter, and we're here to find out what's all behind the story of these NFTs and specifically fractionalizing NFTs. And so how we can, get a part of some of these blue chip NFTs that are super expensive, but kind of get some exposure and what that looks like. So I think in this episode, we're going to dive into some NFT basics just to get you guys up to speed. And then we're going to go full tilt into investing into NFTs, what fractional art is doing, how you can get involved with fractional and with using OpenSea and other NFT platforms yourself. And kind of some pros and cons, some risks, and just anything that we can get into with NFTs and DeFi to help you guys make more educated choices and just, get after it out there in the wild, wild west. So it's your boy Andy, as usual, here today with Rob, and I'll let him introduce himself for the 52nd time.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? Super stoked to be talking to Deeze from Fractional, learning something about NFTs here, get into the use case of why we want to fractionalize NFTs to begin with, and kind of what is just on the horizon for the NFT world. JPEGs are obviously ripping, and we want to be on the inside, gaining an understanding of what is going on, how we can gain an edge, and just kind of multi-chain world all over with respect to DeFi and JPEGs. So super stoked to be talking to Deeze. It's another beautiful day today in Colorado, so I'll pass it over to Deeze to let him introduce himself and kick it off.
Hi, my name's Deeze. I am a crypto trader turned NFT trader turned community manager of Fractional. I've been around crypto since about 2017, and I got NFTs in September of 2020, and basically went all into NFTs last January, and I've been in the NFT rabbit hole pretty much ever since.
Yes, sir. Deeze nuts. We out here.
My name
NFT.
is actually not a reference to Deeze nuts, if you can believe it. It predates Deeze nuts. I've had this nickname for like almost 20 years.
Yeah, that's pretty lit. But there's been a lot of jokes passed around this circle.
Yeah.
Nice, man. So what originally got you into the rabbit hole? Like, was there a specific collection or a specific, what was your aha moment? A lot of us are still like, even being a year almost into the craze, are still like, it's just a JPEG, or I can just screenshot it, or there's no real community, or it's just all just kind of fluff. What was your aha moment, and kind of what collection brought you in?
So CryptoPunks brought me in, and my aha moment was when I noticed that CryptoPunks are basically the party hats of crypto. So to take that back one level, I spent most of my childhood playing a game called RuneScape. There's these items in RuneScape called party hats. Party hats were free for people to get back in 2002. And I had played this game from 2004 to 2018. So I had watched these assets go from being basically free or cheap to being the most expensive item in the game. And knowing that they were this supply locked asset that was really only to flex, the utility of owning it was just the flex. There was no use in the game for the item other than to show that you had a lot of money. So when I saw the punks, I immediately said, in my head, these are the party hats of the entire crypto arena. And anybody who is crypto native rich will probably want to flex the highest status crypto native item, which in my mind was the punk. So I went deep into the punk rabbit hole last September, and that's when I bought my first one. It was $1,000 or $1,200. And just kind of started flipping punks like they were these party hats that I had flipped in the RuneScape game. And it was like a match made in heaven, right? If you trade high-end items in a video game, this was all a video game to me. And trading high-end items in fucking JPEG land is the same as being in an MMO, but you just have way more capital. You give real money, real capital in the system, and not just the video game currency.
Yeah, essentially the same thing when you cross over into cryptocurrency. It's almost magic internet money, and it's like a video game currency, but at the same time, you have this illiquid stores of value. Whether they have utility or not, they're going to be kind of that flex, and it's almost like a liquid clout where you can just store it, and it's a representative of your character, across this game or in the metaverse. So then, after getting involved with punks, kind of how that evolved, we saw punks start to grow into like the profile picture types of collections, and then more branch out from there. Could you kind of take us through like your evolution in NFTs? Like you said, you started off with punks, but then where did it go from there? Kind of how did you trace through the evolution of NFTs and JPEGs?
Yeah, so I wish I could tell you like I got into punks, then I bought glyphs, and I'm super comfy, but like I didn't get into glyphs. I basically bought punks and I started buying Pepe memes on Rarible from this Polish artist his name is Very Rare Pepe, and he would just drop like every few days a Pepe meme of pop culture. And I just kept buying these. And for the first like 2 or 3 months in NFTs, all I had bought were like Pepe memes from this guy and a couple punks. After that, one of the guys in the punks Discord, his name is 𝗃𝗏. He came around in 2017 and claimed like over 20 zombies, but he had sold 5 of his zombies to start a new project called Artblocks, which now a lot of people know, but at the time, no one really knew. And I just knew from being in the Discord with him all the time that like, this dude is awesome. He is genuine, authentic, honest. I don't know much about art, but the fact that he's going to make a new project, like I'm going to go mint whatever he's making. So I was really early in art blocks. I minted maybe like 50 squiggles. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, just having fun with it. And then as new projects came out, I kept minting them and getting into the art, and it was very affordable. Like to mint something was 0.1 ETH or so. And then like you might pay like 0.03 in gas, and there wasn't gas wars at the time. And it was just really fun to like be a part of the minting process of like, I have no idea what I'm gonna get until I actually mint this item. And it's almost like ripping open a pack of Pokemon cards as a kid, but instead of knowing like you want a Charizard from the pack, like you don't even know what you want. You just get shit, and it's like, oh wow, is this rare? It looks cool, like this looks good. And I got kind of addicted to that, like being a part of the process of the minting process. So after art blocks, I would say I got into Top Shot because I saw John Bales, who is a very prolific person in the daily fantasy side of the industry, tweet or about an article he wrote called like why I spent $35,000 on a Java rant moment or some shit. And I didn't even think I finished the article because I had just realized within like 3 seconds that the entire fantasy community of like degenerate gamblers is going to see this and probably get onboarded because this is more plus EV to them if Bales is saying to do this over like compete on DraftKings and FanDuel. So I just threw like 8 Ethereum in the Top Shot and just bought a whole bunch of shit. Like it's crazy at the time. Like you could buy like over 100 packs. Like packs should just sit there. There wouldn't be like a pack drop. So I bought like 100 packs and then like bought a bunch of cards and went down the Top Shot rabbit hole for a little bit. I didn't sell nearly enough at the top. Like shit went crazy. I looked at my valuation, like how the fuck did 8 Ethereum turn into, well into 6 figures within 2 weeks. Like the withdrawals, you can only withdraw $1,000 a day.
Yeah,
but
man.
It wasn't even that, because it would say like, oh, you have $1,000 daily limit, but they were only doing my withdrawals like twice a week. So I could really only take out like $2,000 a week. So it was fucking hell.
Dude. And Moon Overlord is just not having it with Top Shots anymore. Are you in that Discord?
I'm very good friends with Moon. Yeah, I'm in the
Nice.
one. I'm not super active in there, but like I talk to him in DMs all the time. And he was venting
Dude, he's
to
fed
me
up
yesterday.
Yeah,
he was really on one yesterday.
So
he was typing to me in all caps and DMs like, I'm fucking dumb at Top Shot. Like
the withdrawal limit. But dude, I think it's about to blow up again. I mean, as you said, it kind of popped off, and then the NBA season started, and there was just a bunch of BS with Dapper Labs and such, and Moon has had his own experience. Season's coming back, right? They're growing more so than ever. I'm sure, like I think I mean, I don't know. I'm not here to give NFT advice, but I think it's a good place to look for people who are really interested in sports, as you're saying. And a lot of my friends who are interested in sports do DraftKings or just straight up sports betting. And I'm like, I get it. Like, it's fun. It's addicting. Truly, you don't win a lot. Why not invest in something that's, a little bit more, as you say, positive EV, a little bit less 0 or 1. And there's a bit more like a long-term kind of scope to it over the course of a season. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to hear like what your thoughts are going forward with Top Shots, less so kind of what's happened with, in the past with Dapper and the dump and all that.
I think if Top Shots were priced in Ethereum and not US dollars, they would be like 3 to 5x more expensive than they are right now. Like when you go to the site and see that like, oh, I'm buying this legendary that there's only 50 of for like $2,000. And I don't know the player, like it feels bad. But when you phrase that as like 0.66 or 0.7 ETH, it's like you'll punt that on a garbage profile picture project and not think twice. Like, why wouldn't you buy something that there's only like 50 of that they might give future utility to and are building towards? So I think right now it hurts to see the pricing in USD, but it's best for onboarding people, right? Like if you just have prices in Ethereum, people aren't gonna and it's on flow. So it doesn't make any sense to have prices in Ethereum. But like when I think of risk in this ecosystem, I try to change all the units in my mind to Ethereum because it makes it a lot easier for me to take the risk. Like I'm the type of person who won't pay the money to get my groceries delivered, and I'll still drive to the grocery store and like I'll drive to the local Chinese place to pick up food, but like I'll pay, hundreds of dollars in gas and not think twice. Like I have this really weird mentality with Ethereum versus like dollars. But yeah, I think Top Shot is a very overlooked play right now. There's some things in the pipe that I can't mention that I'm looking forward to regarding what might happen over the next 2 months with Top Shot. But yeah, I think, it's definitely an overlooked play in the current environment of like, hey, what profile picture can I mint or flip? And
so, NBA season's coming up, and I mean, yeah, it's definitely something to at least keep an eye on for anybody who's not heard of it. It's pretty simple. You can use a credit card or use crypto to deposit on Top Shot. And yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of YouTube guys. I mean, there's not a bunch, but there's some that will kind of lead the way for you and help you out. And yeah, I think it's a decent thing to look at it as well.
Definitely.
Yeah,
oh, sorry. I was going to say, I think the onboarding is the biggest thing. So like, if we rewind back to what I was saying about getting in February and March and seeing all the Top Shot people come in from that January timeframe, a lot of these people moved into Ethereum and different ecosystems. It was like, I relate crypto to like drug use. And it's like the first hit of your first flip on Top Shot is like, that first hit of a new drug. And you're like chasing that high of like the gamble basically. And I saw a lot of these gamblers like go from being in Top Shot to like going into Bored Apes, going into Zed Run, going into these other communities, whether it was on Ethereum Layer 1 or Matic or whatnot, but they were like, hey, this crypto risk gambling shit is awesome. This is a better place to park more of my money than, DFS, I'm in. And that demographic is huge, I think, for like the growth that we've seen over the last 9 months.
Yeah, and I mean, Andy, you mentioned like the seasonality of Top Shots, and for anyone that doesn't know, right, like the NBA season is coming up in the next month, so it just kind of makes sense in terms of timing. Deeze, I wanted to get back to kind of like what you saw in RuneScape and the types of trends that started to play out with kind of the party hats, but the different assets that were involved with that game, and just kind of the crossover that you see between those types of assets in RuneScape and how they apply to kind of what we're seeing now with NFTs.
Yeah, so the big items in RuneScape, like the party hats were the peak. And then under the party hats, you had these other rare items that came out at between a year and 2 years later than the party hats. So there was like Halloween masks, green, blue, red versions of those. There's like a Santa hat, a pumpkin.
Dude, the Santa hat, man. If you ever saw somebody in RuneScape with a Santa hat, you know that they were experienced AF. Like they were like,
it was normally like when I saw someone with a Santa hat, I'm like, yeah, they're a merchant. Like
like they're destroying you in the wilderness, like you're wrecked.
So I kind of look at the punks to the party hats, but I can't draw similarities between like the later assets like the Halloween masks and Bored Apes, because masks were always useless, whereas like these new NFTs, like I think punks will always be useless outside of if Larva Labs does another fucking 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 drop thing where like it's a mint pass of sorts. But I think stuff like Bored Apes and Cool Cats and these other, you know, profile pictures that aren't punks but building communities, I think you can't really take the like RuneScape model and move it over, because the utility and community that they're building around these specific projects, like there's a non-zero chance in my mind that like Bored Apes overtakes punks. And like I say that as someone who owns 3 apes and 8 punks. So like I'm definitely in the punk camp of like my money is on the punks, but there is definitely a non-zero chance that the hype and community that the Bored Apes build could overtake punks on like a 5 to 10 year horizon. So I try to like think of it in terms of like what probability is it? Like, is it 5%, 10%? And then based on that probability, like how much do I want to hedge my punks bag by owning the other profile pictures?
Got it. Yeah. And it's almost like the punks have just kind of stalled out in terms of development, right? Where like all these other communities are continuing to build community. Some are building utility around their NFTs, but punks, for example, just kind of are still just growing based off that historical like character that they have since they're pretty OG. But they, like you're saying, they might get surpassed by some of these communities that are continuing to develop.
Yeah, I think too with punks, like the fact that they have no utility and that you are just buying the JPEG in a way is like one of my favorite things about them, because we're already in the worst case scenario of there not being anything added on top. It's like we don't know what communities could come up in the future that say like, hey, this project is only exclusive to punk owners, or like that type of stuff. So like we're already at the worst case scenario where there's no future utility being added, and we're already at the place we are off historical relevance plus like, you know, we like the art or whatever. So there's like hidden or unlockable upside there that is hard to put into like the investing equation.
Yeah,
we definitely like the art. Also,
I love the pixels,
like
dude. Like people think I'm like full of shit when I literally say like I like the art, but when I got into punks, I was the type where I had a spreadsheet. I had highlights of like my favorite punks on the list. I knew like what combinations of traits I wanted, like went pretty deep into it, right? Like it wasn't just like I showed up, bought a few and then never looked at it. It was like, all right, I'm going to dig into like, what's every combination of a smile plus a pipe? Because like, to me, that's like a nice stoner degenerate combo of like, you know, you have your weed pipe and your character has a big ass smile. And then I'm like, okay, what's my favorite of these 7? And then I had like a hierarchy of like combination of traits, and it was
and Deeze, I think there's literally a misconception in the NFT world of rarity versus like just what looks good, like aesthetics. Like, it doesn't even matter if there's only 16 hats. If all those hats don't look as good as the alien, well, I'm sorry, hat boys, like you're probably not going to do as well, because I mean, shit, if people don't agree that it doesn't look good, I mean, that's kind of what this is all about, is what the community feels and agrees. And yeah, I think like the biggest way that, and I feel like this is kind of what you're saying, is like some of the punks that I'm sure you've gotten have risen way above floor in comparison to some that are more rare, but just because they look good and people agree with you, then they're at a higher value. It's just interesting to see.
The hoodie attribute in punks is by far the best representation of like aesthetic being more important than rarity. Hoodie isn't even, I think, like a top 25 rarity trait. There's 259 hoodies, but the floor on a hoodie is like 3x the floor on a punk. And there's no other trait that is 3x over the floor until you get up to like the top 5 traits of like Tiara, Pilot, Choker, Beanie. So
yeah,
and there's, you know, 20% or less of those traits than there are hoodies, but everyone wants hoodies. My favorite punk I own is my hoodie punk, and like I meme all the time that like hoodie equals comfy, and like aesthetically you just want to be fucking comfy. We have all these tech bros and we have all these degenerate poker gamblers, and
dude,
like,
you're not even a whale, dude.
No. No, like it's just yeah, my story is kind of wild, but like I don't feel like a whale. I feel like I have this like small bag. Like it's the NFT.
Dude, you're a
ecosystem.
giga whale, Deeze. What are you talking about?
The NFT ecosystem skews your perception of
Oh my
like
God,
US
I
dollar
bet.
value so horribly that like
Yeah.
you look at the punks and like you're always comparing yourself to what's relative and you're never taking a chance to look at the big picture. Like I say I have 8 punks and I'm like, wow, that like feels like a lot when you think of the US dollar amount, all that shit. And then you like look at the leaderboards, I'm like the 152nd most owned punk owners. So there's like 152 people ahead of me that own 8 or more punks. And then it's like a lot of those people are people I know, they're my contemporaries, they're my friends. And then I'm like, fuck, like they own like 40 punks. Like I can't catch up to that. There's no way. Like
yeah, unless they sell. And some of those dudes are never selling and they're fucking, I mean, I just
sold
throw them
so
under
much.
the bus.
Yeah,
just,
I mean,
they're just psycho. They're just like, yeah, nope, never sell them. Sorry.
Yeah, the craziest guy I know is a guy who claimed 703 punks, and then he took a nap basically from when he claimed them until January of this year. And we had thought in the punks Discord that like this guy might be gone, like all 703 of these punks are burnt. And then like he came back and accepted a lowball offer, and it was like all the sharks or piranhas smelling blood, and it was just like everyone's just bidding on his shit, like please accept this lowball, please accept this lowball. And I think he only accepted like 1 or 2 other more offers, and then he like joined the Discord and people started talking to him and they're like, yo, like you're sitting on like the biggest bag of punks of any punk owner. Like you have as much as the devs do now, and you have a lot of gems in here, so like be smart about this. And that person is now down to like 180 punks. So
wow.
If you think of like the profit taking on 703 down to 180, like he doesn't need to sell those 180 ever again, and his life is perfectly taken care of. And there's a lot of punk owners like that where they've sold a big chunk and they're just so comfy with like 50 or 100 of them now that they don't even list stuff, because it's like, what else are they going to do with more money at this point? It's kind of
what crazy. Are your thoughts on that kind of concept? So you know, obviously if you sell a lot of punks, you get a lot of ETH. It's the dollars, like it's great. You know, you can live and survive based on, you know, on just that. But you know, what are kind of your thoughts on these price changes with regards to the floor? So, you know, say ETH goes, let's do 2 scenarios, pretty extreme ones. ETH goes to 1,000 and there's a lot of despair and negative sentiment and people calling it over. And ETH goes to 10,000 and everyone is, you know, euphoric off their rocker. You know, how do you see the NFT floors of blue chips, you know, playing out in those 2 scenarios?
So yeah, I'll go with the first scenario first. If Ethereum goes to $1,000, I think NFTs will outperform Ethereum pretty decently versus the US dollar. Like I think my high-end art blocks and punks would do way better US dollar wise than ETH in that sense of a downturn. But inversely, like if ETH goes to 10K and NFT market remains where it is now, like I don't think the punk floor will still be 110 ETH, because that's gonna be 1.1 million now for a punk. So it's more this like bet on increasing your floor or like lowering your downside risk. But I think it also caps your upside in a sense of like, if you just hold liquid ETH versus NFTs and then the liquid ETH just pumps versus the dollar. That being said, like we know of multiple billionaires now who are coming in and buying up art blocks. Like I'm not going to dox the guy, but the person who's buying the person who bought 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗵𝗵's Death Beef set is also a massive like traditional art collector, and they've come in on the same account and bought like I don't over $10 million worth of art blocks at this point. But like just yesterday, I think they spent like 1,200 on 3 ringers or some shit. They pay like 700, 300, 300 for 3 ringers, and that type of money is buying it from like the art perspective, not the Ethereum appreciation perspective.
Right.
And that's the type of like buyer I could see really creating like a higher USD floor for these things than the Ethereum
the ETH
like
going
dumping.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's
almost,
kind of how I look at it.
So it's like I mean, it's almost like a hedge in a sense, if that's how your thesis is around. But for NFT collectors, maybe having a good amount of ETH just stored. So perhaps ETH moons, we could see some deals on some NFTs if you're looking to hold for longer than just one moon cycle, if you want to call it that.
Definitely.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of see how that works. I think I'd like to touch on a bit of more of a normie collection that I have not seen this corner of Twitter talk about at all. And I think it's because of the guy behind it. And I'll let you take a stab at which one I'm talking about. Famous guy, floor is up there, 15, 16 ETH.
You're talking about VeeFriends?
VeeFriends. What do you think about VeeFriends?
I think VeeFriends are great. I'm personally a little salty that I didn't buy a gift goat at the beginning. They went for around 5 Ethereum, and I told myself I would pay 3. And since they didn't go to 3, I stuck to my plan and then watched them rip from 5 to 100. I think Gary Vee is like one of the highest energy people from the traditional area to like come into the space. And I think he's laid out a good starting roadmap for influencers or creators who don't know how to approach this space. Like the way Gary came in, the way I remember Gary coming in is way back in January, he started buying punks OTC. He bought like 50 some punks, and then he started buying punks publicly. And then he was like in the punks Discord, engaging with the community. He was talking to all of the different punk OGs about their perspectives on NFTs. And then he started partnering with some of those OGs in NFT 42 with 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗵𝗵 and Jimmy to build out VeeFriends. And like, to me, he really couldn't have entered this space in like a more genuine, authentic, engaging way. Like he didn't just come in and try to drop a product, but he came in, like bought OG grails, conversed with those communities before he even talked about his own project.
He dropped bans, dude. Dropped bans on people.
He like puts his money where his mouth is, and I really, really respect him. Even though I don't own VeeFriends, I always point out to the people I'm talking to who are from the traditional side of things and not crypto native as literally using VeeFriends as like a case study on how to approach the space. Because I think like, you don't want to do the same playbook. It can't be a playbook where like influencer comes in, buys popular NFT, drops their own NFT within like 2 to 4 weeks. Like that playbook can't happen. But like the way that Gary was literally like, you could go search his messages in the punks Discord, and he was just picking people's brains, bullshit, and like being a part of the community without trying to extract value from the community. And I think that was really, really important. So like the art on VeeFriends is goofy. Like I don't see
it's
this.
not, you don't buy it for the art, it's for the community.
No, you're not buying VeeFriends for the
art. It's for the exclusivity, and it's for the events, it's for the culture,
Yeah, and I had Matt Shadows from 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 on a Twitter space a couple weeks ago, and 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 is kind of looking at what Gary did with VeeFriends and how to make something in their own mold with that utility for their fans and stuff. And they're dropping that in like around Halloween. So I'm super excited to see that. And then that hopefully gives, another playbook for people to look at. So they can say like, okay, VeeFriends did XYZ and was successful. Okay, 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 did ABC and that was successful. I think Mike Tyson had some success, like the way he came in the community, bought the cool cat, started buying one-on-one artwork from people I know on Twitter. Like it was crazy to see like one of my friends with like a couple thousand followers, Mike Tyson buys her work, and she's just like losing her shit, getting to talk to Mike Tyson over art. And like, I think we want to see more like genuine community connections like that, and not like the nifty gateway style of like influencer / creator churn we saw from, say last January to last June, where it was just like 𝗏𝗏𝗃 ships out a thing on Instagram that says, here's how to make a low effort NFT. And then he follows his own playbook and then dumps it on Nifty Gateway. Or like Eminem has a fucking like action figure that you can go buy on Nifty Gateway, but then like he did nothing in the scene. I haven't heard much from Grimes since her Nifty Gateway drops either. I know her and Elon are breaking up, and maybe there's some drama there, but like hasn't been involved with the community at all is what I'm trying to say. So anything that people pull from Gary, like as long as they realize like the community is the most important part of what they're doing, I think it's a win for everybody. I really respect what he's done with VeeFriends.
Yeah, a lot of these you can kind of tell like when a celebrity or an influencer is dropping an NFT because their manager or some advisor told them to, and they're like, yeah, these NFTs are blowing up. You should probably, engage your fan base, or they're genuinely interested. They like the art, or they like the community and are getting involved.
Yeah, I mean, we just
definitely.
got dumped on by 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃. 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 just dropped the NFT collection and it wasn't even his, and then he deleted it off of it,
So
his Twitter.
yeah, I was
Just
talking
fucking
to a
scammed.
couple of people who know 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃, and like I can't vouch for this being true or not, but like apparently what happens with a lot of these accounts is just like they don't even manage it and they don't approve or sign off on anything. They just get revenue from the tweets, and the people who tweeted it, like 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 wasn't even involved with, they just got paid to tweet it. It's kind of a shame that like there would be no oversight or like
But like
sign
disclaimer,
off.
like 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃 is not exactly involved
Yeah,
in
like
this project.
fucking exclamation point ad,
fucking-
exclamation point
He
something.
will be
or,
deleting his NFT profile picture after they all sell
like
out.
it was so weird. But these people I were talking to are people I respect who like were really to get on a cross and die for 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃's reputation. So I was like, all right, I'll push back on creating more Twitter drama
Yeah.
over this.
So what are your thoughts on Solana NFTs with regards to saturation compared to Ethereum?
I think since the barrier to entry is lower, there's just going to be a higher probability of like scams and rugs and shit. But like that being said, a Solana NFT in general is lower floor, but like higher ceiling than Ethereum NFTs. We've recently seen some impressive shit out of like the Monkey Business team, and I guess Degen Apes and Galactic Geckos, and like I hit a 60x on Frax, which I never fucking expected, and I was only able to sell like 6 of them for a 60x, but it was enough to seed my Solana wallet with a few hundred SOL from like 10 SOL that I minted Frax with. So that was cool to see. In general, I find myself actually going more to Tezos than Solana right now. And I kind of look at Tezos and Solana as being on two opposite ends of the spectrum of when it comes in terms of like community and capital. I think Solana has a fuckload of capital, but they have very little like heart and good art and like community around that capital. Whereas I think Tezos has a lot of good community and good art, but not a lot of capital in the ecosystem. So we're at a stage in the world where like capital is cheap, and I think community is more important. So my bags, they're slightly skewed toward Tezos over Solana, but I do maintain a little bit of exposure to both because like I don't think it's good to be a maxi in this space. I think you need to try all the different L1s rather than just like listen to thought leaders on Twitter who try to force their opinion on you. And I think like dabbling with Solana and Tezos is both like a really high upside over the next 6 to 12 months because most of the attention is on like Ethereum profile pictures and Ethereum communities.
Yeah, that method that you describe is parallel almost to the Gary V approach, where you kind of tap into all these different chains, all these different communities, really get a sense of what's going on and what works, so to learn as much as you can, and then build from there. And we haven't even touched on Fractional and what you're doing there from a building perspective, but what you're talking about going into Tezos, going into Solana, these different chains, how are you able to kind of gather all that information and then funnel it into kind of what you decided to end up building and deploying?
Yeah, at Fractional right now, we're trying to be like completely open-minded. Like we don't have a L1 bias. We're just kind of trying to go where the market takes us. We have a couple partner, I probably can't disclose like with who, but we're working with other L1s to see like what does Fractional look like on that L1. And also with layer 2 in regard to layer. Wait, what's up?
Phantom.
Yeah, I won't disclose any protocols in particular, but I think we'll have an announcement up by the end of October on the next.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, we definitely need to scale to like another L2 or L1s because like the gas fees on ETH are really prohibitive to a lot of our users. Like if you look at the wallet data of our users, most people, their wallet is worth like 1 Ethereum ish. and then whatever NFTs they have. And it's like to have to spend $50 to $100 on a Uniswap transaction. And the killer thing is like liquidity pools. To create a Uniswap V3 liquidity pool, like 100 𝗋 at $3,000 per ETH is like $1,500. And that's a pretty big cost for some of these people when, you know, they have 1 ETH in their wallet. So we're also looking at not only like going to different L1s and L2s, but what's a better way to fractionalize an NFT for our users? So one thing we're gonna be rolling out in the next month or so, we're testing it right now, is fractionalized 𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗏s. So like say I took a punk, rather than breaking it into 100 fractional 𝗶𝗵𝗃20 tokens and then providing liquidity on Uniswap, I could take the 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗵s and put them on OpenSea, and list them, and where it's like, you know, very clear that, hey, this is 1/100th of a punk. And then that kind of gets rid of the whole educational aspect of how does Uniswap work, how does a DEX work, how does the gas for this work, and it gives them something they're completely used to on OpenSea anyway, which is just buying and selling NFTs. And they also can see it in their wallet on OpenSea, which is something that right now, if you buy a fractional 𝗶𝗵𝗃20, you only really see it in like portfolio managers. Like you'll see it in MetaMask, you might see it in Zerion, you might see it in a different portfolio manager. Like, but if you're scrolling on Etherscan, you know, it just shows as a token that's worthless, with no picture, like a question mark over it. And people are like, they don't feel like they're collecting it, right? Doesn't, I don't know. I think as a collector, like you want to be able to put this thing in your gallery. You want to be able to see it with all your other NFTs. So by having 𝗶𝗵𝗃s right now, it's kind of counterintuitive. Like we get a lot of questions of just like, where are my tokens? Like where does this stuff live if I don't see it in OpenSea? And it's like, okay, like maybe maybe we're too focused on like composability and the DeFi side of things, and not as focused on like the user experience of collecting fractional ownership of NFTs. So we're going to have both options available once 1155s roll out, because we don't want to tell people like, oh, you need to use 1155s. Because I still think for like higher value, more liquid vaults, like there's a vault that's 104 punk floors. And like a vault like that shouldn't be 1155s. Like, what's the point of buying 1/1000th of an USD 1155 of like a punk floor vault? Like, that's almost more like a I don't want to call it an index fund because it isn't, but it's more like a giant aggregated vault of illiquid capital rather than like fractionally owning a piece of one punk or one 𝗋𝗋𝗃𝗃. So yeah, we have a lot of different ideas between like L1, L2, and then also just like other ways to fractionalize NFTs to just make it like, what's the best collecting experience we can offer our users? Like we want like a really low barrier to entry, and we want a lot of interesting NFTs available for them to collect. It's like, what's the best way to provide that, while also maintaining all the standardization and interoperability and composability of like the Ethereum ecosystem, and letting DeFi build on top of our platform as well. Sorry, that was kind of a long-winded answer there.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. I definitely have a few questions. I guess I'll just start with the first one. I know Rob wants to ask them as well. It's just kind of quick. Like, is the main goal of Fractional to kind of allow people who have less ETH than you know, a punk owner or something to be able to get allocation to these blue chip NFTs? Or, you know, like, I guess like what's the vision, like what's the main goal? Because that's kind of how I see it. It's like, all right, allowing, you know, anybody, kind of like how layer 2 chains allow anybody to do DeFi, you know, Fractional kind of allows anybody to get exposure to these NFTs, these blue chips.
Exactly. So it's opening up like the ability for any collector to have a piece of a blue chip NFT that like they can't just afford by themselves. Like most people at this point can't get into a floor punk. And if they come in with like one Ethereum into the ecosystem, their options are like punt a profile picture mint, or punt some type of mint and hope for a higher multiple. They don't have access to something like, I don't want to call it blue chip, like it's safe, right? Like, you know, if you buy a punk, it's not going to go down like 80% and be illiquid. But you know, you're not going to get the upside of like a fresh mint, right? but there are people in the ecosystem who want to collect the blue chips that can't afford them, that don't want to take the risky positions that are available to them on that lower end of the capital allocation spectrum. Because like I get this question a lot on Twitter Spaces, and I'd be curious to like hear your opinion. But like if someone came to you and they're like, I have $2,000, I have 1 ETH that I want to put in the NFT space, how do I allocate it? Like I get that question all the time, and I don't even know how to answer at this point, because everything I want to allocate toward safely is at a price point that's way higher than 1 ETH, and there's not a lot under 1 ETH that I'm like super bullish on. Like I might have told someone 2 weeks ago, like buy 1 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 and 1 𝗵𝗵𝗂𝗵 and pray that one of these take off. But now both of those are over 1 ETH, so they're priced out already, and it's tough to really like.
Yeah, I would go with the official Moon-Cats. That's like the only thing left that's like there. But even those are still just kind of like.
Yeah, and is that going to get the person excited about collecting NFTs, or like their only NFT is
those things are ugly, man.
Cat, and they're like,
those things are ugly.
It's like a worse looking 𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗁𝗏, which I didn't think was possible, but they made it. Like, I don't know. It's a tough question. Like we get it all the time, and I think like telling someone like, hey, here's a safer fractionalized NFT that you can collect, and you know the upside might only be like 5x, but the downside is not 0, like a lot of the shit that is available under 1 ETH.
Yeah, like you mentioned, whether ETH goes to 1,000 or ETH goes to 10,000, it's relatively more stable, and there's less volatility in these blue chip NFTs. So someone that isn't looking for just a moonshot, you know, and has like a relatively low risk tolerance is still looking to get that stability.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal that a lot of people in the space overlook, because we've been here for a while, and we may have bought Ethereum when it was $200 or $100 and bought these assets. Like my squiggles to mint, I think, were like $35 to $50 depending on gas. And like, you know, at this point, someone comes in, they're like, oh, I gotta spend 10 ETH on a squiggle. Like, what is this? Like it's a squiggle. Like that's like the reaction I get. Like, cause I have to describe like what art blocks is, how I think it's like a generate. Yeah. Like people look at it, they don't know they're animated. They don't know you can do anything with it. They're like, it's just a rainbow line on a screen.
And yet I feel just so stupid for passing on them at a 2E4. So stupid. I just couldn't get my head around buying a squiggle like that. I was like, this is ridiculous.
I sold half of my squiggles at 0.5 Ethereum a piece, because in my portfolio plan or my thesis, I was able to sell half of my squiggles at half an Ethereum a piece and get my entire art blocks cost basis out. So my plan was, when squiggles got to half an ETH, I was selling half. No one could stop me. And now I just look at myself like, hey, it let me hold everything else, and that's great. But like, fuck, I did not think that the upside on these would be what they were in a year. But yeah, going back to Fractional, it's more about unlocking that ability for anyone to collect. And by unlocking the ability for anyone to collect, it unlocks the upside for every collector in the ecosystem. Because if you can buy a fraction of a punk, like there's so many people who can willingly just buy like $100 worth of a punk, $500 worth of a punk, and that adds a lot of capital.
Yeah, to me, it makes it more valuable too, because if you have more people that own any given NFT, that's bigger community. It's more, it's less so of, I mean, it is about allowing, you know, people to get in and buy and be able to, you know, have access to the upside. But it's even more so like this social capital contribution that comes to the existing punk holders, who now have not only just the punk holders themselves who own one, but there's a bunch of people who own fractions. And so that just, it amplifies the community, you know, in my opinion, like tenfold. It just blows it up.
That's what we've seen too. Like I was going to look up the numbers real quick on how many people own Hoodie. I think it's over 600. I fractionalized a Hoodie punk with a pipe and a handlebar mustache. But the thing I love to see about it is like how many people I know who use that as their avatar now. There's 665 holders, and we have like a channel and a Discord where it's private to only people who own Hoodie tokens. It's called Hoodie Gang. We like, instead of saying GM, we say HM, like hood morning. We don't say the word good ever. We only say hood. Like, so like, what's hood? like instead of what's good, like stuff like that. But it's just fun to like have like a whole memeing community around this punk. And what we've seen too is like the people who buy the hoodie token, they vote to raise the reserve on the hoodie because they don't want to sell it. So like I put it up on Fractional. I think I started it off at 100 ETH implied valuation for this hoodie. And I had the reserve at like 200 ETH. And now it trades at like 400 and no, that's wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, bro. Like, what the fuck?
No,
I was gonna say
it's trading at a 250 Ethereum implied valuation, which is actually like 50 Ethereum under the hoodie floor right now. So if you went on like the punk's website and looked at the hoodie floor and you looked at the hoodie punk we have on Fractional, like
it's a steal.
It's a steal. Like, because the one on the one
all in.
So the one thing, if I have all the fractional pieces, can I redeem it for the original?
Yes. So the two ways to buy out or like redeem a vault are you own 100% of the tokens and you redeem it. And that way is actually like super unlikely, because if you ever create a liquidity pool on Uniswap and then you pull liquidity from it, like 0.00000001 of that token will be stuck in the liquidity pool, and then you'll never own 100% of the tokens again. So what normally happens is all the hoodie owners set a buyout price, and it takes a weighted average based off of your percent of the supply you own. So like the super basic example is two people like Alice and Bob fractionalize something and they each own 50% of the tokens. Alice thinks it should be auctioned at 100 ETH. Bob thinks it should be auctioned at 50 ETH. Since they each own 50% of the vote, it meets in the middle and says, hey, the reserve price is 75. And that's how the auctions work. So like anybody could come down and throw down that 75 ETH, and there would be between 3 and a 14-day auction on the buyout. And when the buyout is done, anyone who owns the fractional tokens can go on the page and claim the Ethereum based off of the percent of tokens they own. So like,
okay. So technically that hoodie that you own is always for sale if it's on Fractional.
Yes, it's at 627 reserve. So like if you wanted to buy out that hoodie, you'd have to put down 627 Ethereum right now.
Which is like way higher than
like right now the hoodie floor is 300 ETH.
Okay. So buying out would be amazing for the holders, but wouldn't make a lot of sense for anybody else.
Right now. Yeah. So like they could decide they want to vote it down. That vote isn't locked in. It's one vote per wallet, but you can change the state of your vote at any time. So like if you thought it was worth 700 and then the next day you wanted to vote like 410, you could just change it and it would update the weighted vote. But the thing I was surprised
shit. Yeah, let me just vote on how much.
It's just how much people didn't want to sell it. Like they bought the tokens. So like right now I only own 11% of the hoodie and it's all in a liquidity pool. So I have no voting rights because I'm not holding any of the tokens. They're just in the liquidity pool. So my vote doesn't even matter for what the reserve is. It's all up to the people who are holding it. And I think it's cool because it allows them to say like, hey, we're not trying to flip this quickly. Like we're content on holding it for the longer term and being a part of this community. Whereas we've seen other things like a zombie got bought out on PartyBid, which PartyBid is a way to group together people trustlessly to bid on auctions. And then after the auction is won by PartyBid, it's automatically fractionalized and people can claim the fractional tokens. But we saw a zombie that people got really upset about because they bought into it and then it got bought out like 2 weeks after. And they're like, what the hell? Like, I wanted to hold this. Like, can I keep my tokens? Will my tokens give me like a 1% of the new zombie? And the answer is like, no, your tokens are always going to be 1% of the 1900 Ethereum the guy paid out to buy the zombie.
Yeah, sorry, man.
So it was one of those things where like the community had anticipated they were going to hold it longer, but they actually didn't. And I think like for me, it's exciting to see buyouts. You want buyouts to happen. It was one of the big negatives I thought existed with the other fractional platforms like Niftex and Uniquely. It's how hard it is to actually get a buyout to happen. Like you need a quorum and a certain amount of the community to vote. And like, it's such a hassle and it's so complex where like the fractional way of just everyone gets a weighted vote. 50% of the tokens or more have a vote, then the auction's live, anyone can buy it out, and it'll start the auction. Like, it's just so much more simple, because then you could view it as a buyer and be like, oh, hey, these are distressed or underpriced, I'm going to buy them out. So yeah, that's kind of what I was. I don't even know what I was going to say to wrap that up, but
yeah, no. I mean, without the buyouts, it doesn't. Like the buyouts validate the platform. Without that ability, obviously, the platform is kind of like, what's the point of even doing this? Because there's no exit. And that's kind of the whole goal for. I mean, when people are investing, they want to hold, as you say in that example, but they can't be upset about the profits that they've made, and can come and reinvest into different NFTs. And real quick, there's one specifically on Fractional that you mentioned for our audience that's kind of an arbitrage play that is kind of a steal. Which one exactly was that?
Yeah, and I don't want to call it an arbitrage play or an investment.
Yeah, those are my words. No words.
Very strictly, like the implied valuation of this 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 is like 50 Ethereum under the 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 floor on Larva Labs. I'll throw it in the chat here, but if you go to our site and just search hoodie in the chat or the search bar, it comes up, but I threw it in the call we're in if you want to like link it. But yeah, that's the 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 I put up right when we launched, really. And you see I'm the owner. I call him Uncle Hood or Unc Hood. I don't know. I had fun with them. And yeah, like it's one of those things where we have a little community in the Fractional Discord. People get excited about it. There's a good amount of people on Twitter who have this punk as their profile picture. So if you ever see them, then you're like, oh, hey, they own a piece of that fraction.
That's super cool. That's super cool. You can like flex like you're rich as hell, but you just own a fraction. You're actually legit because you do own it.
Yeah. We have some other cool things, like the dog meme or the dog meme is like our biggest NFT. I don't know if you heard about that, but 𝗶𝗺𝗃 had bought the dog meme for like under 2,000 Ethereum last year, or sorry, not last year, like 4 months ago. And then they fractionalized it, and they used 𝗍𝗍's MISO platform to like auction off, I think it was like 20%, or maybe it was 5% of supply. I forget the exact number. They auctioned off a small amount of the supply. But this dog meme is trading at a implied valuation now of like 47.5 thousand Ethereum, or $143 million.
DeFi Ted is licking his britches right now. That's for sure.
It's insane. Like I saw the auction for this blow up, and I just sat here like, they just bought that for like not that much Ethereum at all compared to what people are willing to ape into this at. And like, I like what they're doing. They have like community grants, and a lot of it's going back to the community in some way, but it's still like a crazy leap to show like how powerful fractionalization can be on the right NFTs, where like it went from being worth a couple thousand ETH to being worth 9 figures, just because the fractionalization component opened up the ability for so many more people to get involved.
Yeah, and then it just proliferates into the community more and more, grows community and grows the holders. And like you said, in a realm where capital is cheap, the community is expensive, and they were able to harness that.
Yeah, it's crazy how cheap capital is and how much capital is floating around this ecosystem. And like, it's something I didn't really realize until last year myself, being kind of an avid crypto trader, but not being like on the business or enterprise or protocol side of things. It's really been eye-opening and cool to see, but like, it also makes me realize like the ceiling was way higher than I thought it was before.
Yes, especially if comparing in US dollar value.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a meme to say like, oh, we're still early, but it still feels like incredibly early.
Yeah, so what do you think about these new creatures that just came out? We got Shaq posting a profile picture. Do you own any? Do you like them? What do you think? 10 floors, 10 each floor soon? What we got?
So creatures. I didn't like the art. I'm still not sure if I like the art.
We don't like the art.
But I had someone I really respect, super good vibes, super zen-like dude, someone I talk to in Twitter spaces all the time. He went on like a 30-minute monologue about like how much he fucks with the creatures and likes them. And this was like 2 weeks ago. And I remember listening to him and being like, yeah, I should buy one of these. This is good shit. And I never bought one. And then I saw the Shaq tweet 2 minutes after he tweeted it. And I just went to OpenSea and just like failed 3 transactions, but ended up getting 2 of them. And now I'm like holding my 2 creatures just to see what the fuck happens, because like I got that impassioned monologue from a friend who I respect his opinion. And I didn't find myself liking the art. So that's normally like why I don't buy things. But then like hearing all the shit Danny has in store and like how he's kind of this like 21-year-old visionary with big plans made me realize, like, on top of seeing Shaq, who has like 15 million Twitter followers, one of the most loved personalities in America, like ape in, I was like, okay, I need a couple, right? Like I need one to hold for my membership shit to do stuff. And then I need one to like sell if this hits like a 5x. So for me, if they get to 10 ETH floor, like I'm fine selling that second one I bought and then holding the one that is my forever creature just to see like what the fuck Danny does. Because so much of this stuff is such a long-term bet. Like these creators can't realize these visions in like 3 months or 6 months. And people are like, oh, what's your roadmap? Oh, what's your plan? And it's like, I just want to see what these creators do, and like being able to back them almost in like a VC way, but be a part of the community in the process is a just really fun experiment. So like the bet I take is just like, I'm gonna hold one of these forever and see how this shit works out, just because like this creator has good energy and I think they could do something really cool that like I can't even fathom right now. Like I'm not the most imaginative or creative person, but when I'm around that energy, I know it when I see it, and I like taking like small shots on them.
Vibes, bro. It's all about the vibes. We like.
Oh, it's all about the vibes. Like my pinned tweet is like, I'm a 𝗵𝗫 IQ8 who just goes off the vibes, because that's how I've done everything in the NFT space. Like vibes of the punks were like, oh shit, it's a Lindy Flex piece. Like I need this. This is gonna be like a party hat. Vibe of Art Box was like, oh fuck, man. Like Snowfro's such a good dude. Like whatever he makes is gonna be sick. Let's get in on that. Like Top Shot vibe didn't really pass, and then I like kind of got annoyed and frustrated and burnt out, but like seeing the people that came from it was good. The redemption arc is interesting, and then like all the other little projects I've had that have been like bigger wins, like Cool Cats, buying Cool Cat at like 0.1 ETH, now they're like 10 ETH. Like that was all vibes. Like we had Klon and another person from the team in a Twitter space within like the first week, and Klon is like, yeah, I've been like drawing the Cool Cats since like 2012. We're like, what? Like, wait, you said like 2012, like not 2021? And like you go on his Instagram and go back, and there's old pictures of the cat that he's been working on. And it's like, this dude's been obsessed with cats, specifically the blue cat, for so long. And now for the first time, he has an opportunity to like build his vision and get capital from his community around it. Like that's not going to be coming to the market at its peak in like long. 6 months or a year. Like it's going to take, if he's been working on a cat for years, it's going to take more years for this to play out. But like I got to be a part of it, because if someone is willing to dedicate that much time to something with no other reason other than just passion before they found the space, like what can they do when they get in the space? They get capital, they get community, they get help, and they still have that underlying passion. Like a lot of them will probably still fail, but it only takes one project or 2 projects to be the next 100x or 1000x with ape or a Cool Cat. That like 99% of your bags can fail and you'll still make money.
Yeah, I mean, you've dropped, immense amounts of alpha here on this call, Deeze. You know, we greatly appreciate it, but there's never enough for our alpha hungry community. So what they're wondering here today is, our boy 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵 has been tweeting a lot about this upcoming NFT bull run, and how that, like you said, NFTs might not survive the ETH run to 10K, but there's something happening right now. And on OpenSea, a lot of floors have been trending up the last few days and weeks, really. So how do we play this next month, 2 months of this NFT bull run that's happening? What are some of like the flipping strategies? What are some of the things that you're looking at each day when you wake up in the morning and look at things? What's a general strategy and framework for like waking up, getting into it, getting after it, and participating in what we think to be like this next wave coming?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wish I had a more scheduled and refined approach. My day normally starts between 8 and 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. I roll out of bed, I check my phone, I start replying to DMs, and I get like coffee ready, and I just get ready for the day. By then, it's like 9:30 or so. I'll sit down at my computer, go through some work shit, and then I look at Nansen like first thing every morning. I look at their market overview for the NFT market and just see like what's the highest volume stuff today. I kind of can gauge it and tell like if the market's doing well or poorly just off the volume numbers alone. And like a day like today, you see like 3150 Ethereum volume for cryptos, 3000 volume for punks, 3000 volumes for art blocks. Like you just know it's a good day right off the bat. Like when we had slow days back in the beginning of September, there would be days where like no project had over 1000 Ethereum of volume. And it was just like really anemic. Like we watched art blocks go from like 10K Ethereum volume a day to like under 1K Ethereum volume a day within like 2 weeks. And for me, I use September. I didn't make enough big bets in September. So I have a couple things in life that I need to be planning for right now. So I need to have more liquidity on hand than I would like to. But I use September as a time to kind of go through all of the projects that had came out in August that I wasn't privy to. And I was trying to I'm really privileged to be able to like host Twitter spaces and get founders of the team on a space where I can directly question them and like just ask questions about their project and then bring up my friends and community to also ask questions. So like I talked to Pablo Stanley from 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 when the floor was like 0.15. And we talked to him for like 3 hours. And I just remember the whole time talking to him like, holy shit, like this guy gets it. He's established. He's been community building. Like he's doing things just by what his community wants him to do. And he's just vibing like, okay, I need to buy like 5 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵s. And like, if I was in a normal risk managing position, like I would have bought like 25, right? Like ideally my position size would be 5 ETH or so per project. And like, if you're buying them for 0.15 or 0.2, you can get a lot for 5 ETH. But yeah,
so get a Nansen subscription, get in DeFi's Twitter spaces, and yeah, just keep your eyes open for the vibes.
Yeah, and then I would say too, like going forward, it's hard to say that like at current prices, it feels good to buy into stuff like toads and creatures. And I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but like I bought some Habbo hotel shit yesterday. Like I didn't know anything about it. My wife was like, oh, hey, I played that game when I was a kid. And I was like, in the Punks Discord, okay, how much it cost to mint this? Okay, it was like 0.25 to 0.3 after gas. It's trading for 0.4. Like, okay, I'm just gonna buy some immediately. Like, good enough. Like, this could go to 1 ETH. Like, it was super low due diligence, like super low dart throw, just like, I don't know, 2 minutes of research. Like, that's some of the positions I take where it's just like gut feel of, oh, hey, this is old and has a crowd that cares, and like maybe this will be worth something. With new stuff coming out in particular, like I just really try to vibe check the team, ask about the history of the team. Like you don't want the team to be anonymous to the point that you can't look at anything they've done ever. To me at least, like you want to see like a history of creating before the NFT space, so that you know the people behind this project are like creating because they love to create and not creating because this is the best capitalistic opportunity for them to take at this point in time. But yeah, in terms of like current projects, I don't have a lot of recommendations on where to go. But for sussing out new projects, like, yeah, talk to the team. Like I almost like force myself on the teams at this point, and I can turn it as a marketing opportunity for them. I'm like, hey, come up on a space and like, we'll talk about your project. And honestly, there's been very few teams that like I get horrible vibes from and don't buy. It's most of the time like really good vibes, people who have been doing stuff for a while and are taking the leap in and trying to figure out like how can they build in the space and create their own niche. And I'm willing to take a shot on like a lot of these projects. So I probably have like 30 or 40 different profile projects in my wallet if you're going to go look. So like it only takes 1 or 2 of those to become the next 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 or the next 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵, that the others can all go to 0 and you're still, you know, significantly happy with your decision.
Yeah. So spray and pray, kind of works if you're willing to hold.
Yeah, I think it's hard right now to have like high conviction in one new project and like just go all in on it. Like it could definitely work out. You could definitely hit like 100x right off the bat and be sitting pretty, but you could also be sitting over allocated in a bag, and the opportunity cost of not being able to enter other new stuff you see might outweigh the conviction you have in that one specific bag to pump.
Yeah. Amazing, Deeze. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear about kind of your journey and fractional and everything to come. I mean, I know I've learned quite a bit, and I've got a few action items of those to invest in a fractional NFT on there somewhere. Probably that hoodie that's the quote unquote undervalued. And yeah, man, I
not to speak my own bag, right? Like go on the fractional site, sort it by implied valuation, and then just look at like some of the stuff on top and see if there's anything you like. Or maybe sort by popular. You might get better results than implied valuation, because there's kind of a bug in a way where people can provide like a really small amount of liquidity at a high price, and then it skews the implied valuation ridiculously, because it's like no one's going to buy that implied valuation $100 million, even though there's one token for sale there. But yeah, I would say like there's definitely good things to be found on fractional. I think the discovery aspect is hard, and it's something we're working on, but it's like, how can we integrate our stuff on fractional to like show up on OpenSea, show up on the Punks marketplace, show up in other places people are at, so that they can discover that, hey, there is a market inefficiency here that they can take advantage of, rather than just like they need to go to our site and search through stuff to find it. So yeah, I'm really bullish on where we'll be in like 3 to 6 months and everything that's in the pipe. And yeah, it's a work in progress that we're aware of, that we need to keep iterating on and keep making better. And that's what we're committed to doing. And I'm looking forward to see where we're at.
Amazing.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me on too. I appreciate you guys reaching out, talking to me for a bit, bullshitting about NFTs. If anyone ever wants to come talk to me and bullshit, I'm normally hosting a Twitter space, like 6 to 12 hours a day. I'm in some type of Twitter space. And you just come up on stage, pick my brain, or pick the people's stage on brain, or pick the brains of the people on stage and just vibe with us.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man.
It's in the vibes. Yeah. Thank you, Deeze.
No problem.
Good vibes.